Okay, so let's continue from there. So here, so software, it can be anything, system software or application software. So how you can like acquire them, right? So that is what I'm going to discuss in this part. Now, first of all, remember, all software are copyrighted, right? So software are copyrighted. So that means there is an owner always, right? That is we call copyright owner. So there is only one exception that you don't have copyright. So there is only one copyrighted software. So because of that, whenever you use a software, always remember you are agreeing with some conditions, because the software developer, right, the copyright owner always gives the software with the license, right? So this license is there except again one category, right? So don't think that whenever you get a software there is no like binding with that software, because any software you have a binding. Okay, so that is what here also, like I think you might have used a lot of freeware software. So they are basically freeware, means it's free, and then they are coming as object code, that is like ones and zeros, right, which you can't do any changes to the program. You have to install and use it, and they are copyrighted. Okay, so now for example, now you will be using Adobe Acrobat Reader, right? That is a freeware, maybe Skype or the Zoom that you are using now, right? Or Chrome browser, there can be a lot, right? So all these things, whenever you install, right? So you might have read a document like this, right? And there was a tick box that you have to check, and then you have to say agree, right? So that's like a contract signing, electronic contract signing, because when you just press this agree, so you can say accidentally I have pressed that button. That is what I really don't agree with your conditions. You can't say that, because you just have to put a tick there. So once you put the tick and then press that button, that means you are coming to an agreement. So if you have ever read, so then you know that those are the conditions you have to abide by the software developers' conditions. Okay, so try to remember that. It's very, very important. And any software is copyrighted. So freeware is a software that is available for us for no monetary cost, right? That is like we call freeware. Most people provide a lot of software like that, but however, you are not supposed to do any changes, because you can't do that, because that is object code only, right? So that's the most important thing. And then that's a copyrighted software. So only thing is, so you have to read that conditions whenever you agree to use that. So that's the conditions that will be there. Now, there's a similar type of software that we call shareware. So again, it's object code, it's copyrighted, it's freely available, but for a trial period, right? Because after the trial period, they can charge you. That's where, like, again, this is very dangerous. You have to, when you are using that, you have to read that license agreement, because it's copyrighted. There is a license, right? The thing is, you said like, okay, I have used for, this is, let's say 7 days. So you have used for 7 days, but now it says, if you are not obtain the paid license after the 8th day, right, you have to pay from the first day onwards as a penalty, right? Maybe something like that, just I'm making up, right? Case like, because you are now, because after the 7th day, because you are basically using pirated software. So that is what we have to say, like, because it has given you to use free of charge only for 7 days. So there are some are 7 days, some are 14 days, there are some can be 90 days, right? So I think I don't have seen much beyond that. But some people do the same thing, not like a trial period. They give the software with, let's say, 30% of the functionality. So then it's like a freeware, right? Even though it's called shareware, because they call shareware because not the full thing is being given to you, but 30% only given to you. So if you want to enjoy the rest 70%, you have to pay, right? So 30% freeware, 70%, it's not really freeware, it is like paid, right? So you have to pay for that. So that is, there's another mode of shareware, but mostly like I think you might have seen this, it will be after whatever that day. So some software like they were like automatically disabled, right? So that you might not be able to use. But however, let's say it's not been automatically disabled, right? But if we are using, but since you say now, okay, it's like still it's working, I can use it. But your agreement that you have signed is for 7 days. But thereafter, you are violating, right? So you have to be very careful with shareware whenever you use. Okay, can you remember I said there is a one type of software which doesn't have a license? So this is that particular type of software. This is called public domain software, right? So a lot of people think that is open source software, right? Is no license. Is really not correct. It's wrong, right? So open source, which we will discuss today, right? Open source software is copyrighted. Okay, so only uncopyrighted one is public domain software. So they are sometimes they provide source code as well. So that's quite different now, right? So like open source, they can provide the source code because open source means source code is open, right? So, so here also public domain software provide you source code as well as uncopyrighted. Right? So that's why, like, if I ask in the exam, what is the difference between open source and public domain software? Both provide source code, but open source is copyrighted, whereas public domain is not copyrighted or uncopyrighted. Right? So then you might ask, what, like, who these people are, like, who are they, right? Because they are not copyrighted. So they are basically developed under government, or even it can be NGO, right? Grants, and then based on that, basically. People will be given, like maybe some people are being hired to do that software, right? So they have been probably paid as well. So these people want to get some software working, and thereafter it's been given like a public domain. So that's why like public domain is like a song, like let's say like if singer, let's say like Bhati and Santosh can sing some person's song, like their song they can sing. But let's say if you take Amaradeva's song and sing, that is like this copyrighted, that song, unless they got the agreement from that particular author, like the singer, right? So that you can't. So similarly like that. So software is also all are copyrighted, right? So only thing is this is like a public domain, right? So I think, I don't know whether any of you all, this is not all the public domain software, right? I have put here several only. I think out of this, probably some of you all might have used this SQLite, maybe IT guys, maybe a 7-zip software, like that's a unzip software. So that is all right. SHA3, I will be talking to you all a bit later. Probably today or next lecture, right? So that yes, we can use that software for security related stuff. Yeah, this YouTube DL, I think that is downloading YouTube videos, right? If you really want, I think this is a public domain software some people have developed, right? So you can use that, right, to download the YouTube videos. If YouTube is not allowing you to download this through the software, you can. There are some others as well, but this is a public domain software. Yeah, but so not many, right, software are there like this, but this is a very special thing because this is uncopyrighted. The next category is like what all of you all know, that is the commercial or proprietary software, right? That is like Microsoft or even Adobe. But Adobe, for example, Adobe Acrobat Reader is freeware, but Adobe other ones like Photoshop and then Adobe, there are lots of other software they are having. So those software are commercial, they are copyrighted, they are, yeah, you have to pay, that's a fee, right? And they always comes as object code, right? So that is what you have to understand. then, so then now you can see we were discussing about freeware and then shareware. I will write it public domain. It's quite different one, public domain. Right? And then proprietary or commercial. Proprietary. So these all are object code. I put here OBJ, object code, right? So public domain provides you this thing is not working well. That's okay. These are all, this can be source code. And then last final category is this, that is open source, right? Which I will discuss with you. That is copyrighted, right? So it is same as proprietary or others, like not like public domain, because only public domain is uncopyrighted. But the good thing here is this is source code is available, right? So then I will talk about whether it's free or fee, right? Whether that is what you can come up with. So open source basically has two types where it can be copyrighted like the software. The source code will be given like public domain software, right? So that it has sort of both features, right? But whether it's free or for a fee, that yeah, it's a good question. We will discuss that, right? Yeah, any questions on that you want to check before we proceed with respect to different types of software, whether you have acquired any other type of software?
In LinkedIn, there are some courses which related to different disciplines. So that's also offering for trial, 7-day trials. So there are different categories.
Yes, yes, yeah. You can take
shareware, no?
Yeah, you can also take them as shareware. Yes, you're right. Because whatever, if you are using, maybe it's a training module, but it is coming as a software, so then we can categorize under software.
Okay.
Yeah, any other clarifications? Or is that all right? And what you know about software as well. And finally, I would like to say that software piracy is not a good thing, right? You should not get involved. So as a company, you should never use them, right? As individually as well. Individuals, you should also just try to not use, right? Pirated software, because prosecution can be taken. Like there are, because most of them are licensed, like almost all licensed software. So because of that, there can be issues, right? So licensed software means there is a copyright owner, right? So only public domain software. Like if someone says, this is software you can use freely, there's no problem, I am giving, just use it. But first ask that question, what is the license type? If she says there's no license, this is a public domain software, you don't need to get scared, because that is right. But rest of the things, you might have to be very careful about the license, and then based on the license, maybe you can ask from IT department, give a recommendation, right? And then only you should be using. So this is just, I took some example. Sri Lanka is not very good with respect to software piracy, right? But we are a little bit better than Bangladesh. But I think India, Pakistan is maybe, okay, Pakistan is like a little more than that. Maybe India as well. Like there's some reports that I just found it from a website, right? But however, remember, like even under Intellectual Property Act of Sri Lanka, number 36 of 2003, under section 6.1.a, books, pamphlet, and then articles, computer programs, and other writings like that, there are like, because if you are violating, right, so that computer programs is also there, right? So that means if you are violating a book, like, so action can be taken. Similarly, this can be taken. So that's where like a lot of raids are happening, right? When Microsoft sometimes comes to your companies and check, because with a court order, and then they can take legal action within Sri Lanka. Yeah, this slide just I left it for you all to read. So, like what sort of task you should be having, right? Whenever you purchase software, right? The sort of tasks the software is used for, because sometimes like now people say like, okay, we might need some BI tool, like to business intelligence tool to do some analysis, like you might say, but you already have a MX Excel, right? So Excel has a lot of power, right? First we have to check whether you are using that, and then thereafter you can, if this Excel cannot do, so then you can move that right beyond another, because sometimes having a lot of tools with you, like sometimes people used to buy unnecessarily because the software is expensive, right? So that's what like you all have to make a good decision on that. And sometimes you should be able to ask like, can't you do that from here, right? And today with FOSS, I'm going to give you some other opportunities as well, right? Especially before you invest on a software, so what you can do, and especially if you are a startup, right? So how to reduce your cost, that is we will discuss under this FOSS as well. So other things like just the operating system. Now, what operating system does it matter? Like I will just open up another window. Right screen. Now I said software, system software, and application software. Now, you should not have any condition like, let's say, to use MS Office, right? So then someone can say what system software you should have, right? So theoretically, it can be Windows 10 or it can be Apple, Mac OS, right? Apple OS, we'll say, or it can be Linux, it can be Android. But however, you all know that MS Office will work on MS Windows, right? And then there is a version they have on the Apple, but it is not working on Linux, it's not working on Android, it's not working any other operating system. So if you take operating systems, there can be issues. So you can see here, that is because like Microsoft itself is making a condition, right? Other than that, like if not the case, like there is no issue as such. Now, for example, if you take Chrome browser, right? So the Chrome browser will work on Linux, Chrome browser will work on Windows, Chrome browser can work on Apple or even Android, right? So there's no problem, right? So that is how generally with software, you don't have to stick to a system software, but unfortunately, there are quite a few software. So then remember, now let's assume like you are going to purchase MS Office. Let's assume you are running Linux, right, as operating system. Now you have to think of buying Windows 10 licenses as well, because this will work with that particular system software. So likewise, like MS Office is very obvious one. There can be so many other software application, sorry, application software. You have to do that, right? So whenever you make decisions, you have to think like, okay, it's just not only the investment has to be put here, the investment has to be put onto the operating system as well. What are the minimum requirements? So generally, like today, most of the hardware, quite all right, it will be supporting, right? Whatever the hardware you have, right? So then you should, not a big problem, but however, there is a minimum. And then on a single computer network is also very important to look into, right? Whether you are buying a single computer, like the licenses, like the software, or whether it works on a network environment. And then how the support, how much, like what sort of support available, and then how easy to install them, because that's where like ultimately If it's very hard, so you have to get another support as well from someone. Okay, so now let's move to the other software category, because I will take a separate discussion on that, because there can be a lot of advantages you all can take, right? Or like open up some things to consider about software, right? So this is also another important area to discuss. That's what I thought of discussing with you all. The first, or like, again, if you have any doubts, or like whether you already know certain things, you can also discuss with me and share with others as well. Yeah, first of all, this is called free and open source, right? And some people used to call as FLOSS as well. The reason is here, like L is coming. L come for Libre. That is one reason, because this free stand for freedom. Freedom, right? Not like free of charge. Or I would say free lunch, right? Or even free beer, right? So it's in Sinhala, like we call nomile. Sorry, nomile. It's not, that's not nomile, right? This is called nidahas. Right? So that's what, like, it's called freedom, right? So the free stand for that, right? So then before coming, yeah, okay. This particular person is a like father of FOSS, I would say, right? So his name is called Richard M. Stallman. So he was a IT guy. He was working for one of the big universities in the US as a system administrator. And he had a unpleasant experience, right? So that was like the main reason for him to start a movement called Free Software Movement, right? Free Software Movement. So with that, he came up with some freedoms, right? So with this, ultimately what came up was some freedoms, right? So this is what his unpleasant story. He was like, I think this was happened like in the 80s. He was using a big computer. At that time, no PCs, no Windows, right? So that's not the time period. But this is kind of a bit of a big computer, right? And to tell you like what the operating system they were using is called Unix. So a lot of people confuse Unix with Linux, right? So like what I have told you initially as well, Linux not equals Unix. That's much easier to remember for you all, right? Now you all know, because I explained internet and web as well in that way. So Unix is the operating system. That particular computer, I will put here like his name, RMS, Richard M. Stallman. So he was using, by the way, this was a proprietary software. So it's not like kind of open source anything, right? Because that's where like a lot of people get confused again, because this is FOSS, but this is not FOSS. Right? FOSS came because of Richard Stallman, right? So he is the father of FOSS. So then this shouldn't be Unix, shouldn't be FOSS, because that is after this Unix experience, although like he started this. So what happened was actually he was using Unix and he was quite all right, right? That's the operating system. They have purchased a new printer and they were trying to connect this printer to the operating system and try to use. And this is a newer one than the computer and the operating system, right? But somehow this particular printer didn't have sort of like drivers, like that's what like we discussed last time about drivers, part of software. So then these particular drivers not working for Unix. That's what like the main problem. But he wanted to use this particular printer because that was quite good and he wanted to like use it. But only thing is his issue was like he was using OS as Unix. So then he has told the Unix copyright owners, right? At that time it's called AT&T Bell Labs, right? In US. So he's told like, okay, you all have the source code, right? Please do this modification and give to me because I want to get this printer running. but they have not basically entertained his request, right? So then that was his first request. And the second request was, give me the source code, right? I will do it, right? And then I will make it working. They said, no, this is a proprietary software. We are not supposed to give to clients the software because we give only the object code. So then with that, he was like a bit upset. And then he thought like, okay, when he started looking at this particular scenario, what he realized was these software guys here, right? Including me now, I'm not a program. So by the way, I'm not into that category, I might say. But the software guys can like sort of control the whole world, sort of, because they can create some software and then they can say like, okay, we will not support or we can't help you, like whatever. But then all these other people are basically relying on that, so that you need a lot of support from them, but they will not provide. Now, I will take an example. This is not has happened like that. So you all are using MS Office. Right? This is an example only, by the way, so don't get so excited. MS Office, and then MS Office license agreement, like where Bill Gates says is, right, you have agreed. So you can write any letter, right? But you are not supposed to write resignation letters. Right? If you are writing resignation letter using MS Office, right, or MS Word, I would say rather Office, right, to be precise, MS Word. So then you are violating the copyright owners, right, whatever the license agreement, right? So, or like maybe someone can say like only male can use, the female can't use this software, because that with license agreement can have anything, right? So like you can say only the developed countries can use, or non-developed countries or developing countries can't use this software. So all sort of issues can start, you can see. So Richard Stallman was looking at this in a quite different way, being IT guy. So he said that this is very bad, because then the people who write software, so they can do whatever, and whereas the end users has to suffer. He said this is wrong, right? So that is what now he said the end user should have freedom, right? So then he came up with 4 freedoms, right? That is what he said. So there has to be 4 freedoms at least software is concerned. So if you don't entertain those 4 freedoms, that we should not categorize as software, right? So then that is what the main story. So that the situation is like, the problem was like he couldn't get this printer, and they were using proprietary operating system. So they were not happy to do the modification, or they are not happy to provide the source code to end user to do that development. So then with that problem, so then he defined 4 freedoms. And then what he said was, okay, I will create a project, right? And then that project is called GNU. So GNU stands for, this is, we pronounce this GNU, right? So GNU is, so here is not Unix. So you can say it is not Unix. That means I am making a software which is not Unix, right? And this is, the name itself is called a recursive acronym, because GNU, you will never be able to expose what is G stand for, because G is GNU. NU is not Unix. So then this NU is, then just like GNU is not Unix. So this G means again GNU is not Unix, like that it goes on. Like, so then someone has asked, why do you put such a recursive name for a product or project like this? And he said like, that's my hateness towards Unix, because whenever you try to understand what is GNU, so then you say not Unix, not Unix, not Unix. So that, because if a recursive thing, like maybe you can try to replace G with the GNU and G with GNU, and then you see a lot of NUs, right? That NU stand for not Unix, not Unix. So that's what he said. It was quite fun and quite interesting, like how he has even named that. So he's a very intelligent guy. And that's how, that is why like he has come up with those 4 freedoms. And then actually he quit it from his job, and then actually he started this project, right? So what ultimately happened was like a lot of people fascinated about what he has done, right? This is the software guys itself actually, right? And also non-software guys as well. So then a lot of people try to give support, right? So that that is how like today some software are there, right? Even like free of charge, because here free stand for freedom, but today a lot of FOSS software are there free of charge, because a lot of people have devoted their time and effort to Richard Stallman's this particular movement, right? And then a lot of software has come up, right? Okay, now let's try to see these 4 freedoms. So these are those 4 freedoms, right? So if I say 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's see, what are those 4 freedoms? He said the freedom to run the program for any purpose, right? That's where, like, you can't say resignation letters are not allowed to write, but once you have a software, right? So you can use it for any purpose. Even you can use MS Word and create a recipe to create a nuclear bomb. So that is also possible, because the software copyright owner should not take legal action against you. You are doing something bad to the because the user should have the freedom. So these freedoms are for end users, right? Basically. So that is the first freedom. The second freedom is, like, now, even today, let's say, like, I think some countries, even I can remember some European countries, as well as Australia, asked from Bill Gates, can you even tell like how Microsoft is working, right? Microsoft Office, right? Because we all are using in our mission critical things. We want to know, like, internals, like what's happening there, right? But they have not said that we can't give, right? That's why, like, even as countries have reached, right? So they are not providing, because that is what their license is all about, right? So they say it's like we are giving only the object code, source code will never be given to anyone, right? Under any circumstances. But then that's where, like, let's say for mission critical or military related stuff, like, so when you use such software without knowing, so you don't know what is backend like happening, right? So whether those files that will be transferred automatically to someone else, right? So you don't know, like, I'm just making things like, so then what he said was, okay, so first freedom is to run for any purpose, right? Then he said freedom has to be there to study how the program works, because that is a kind of the second freedom, right? So then you can't do without source code. Actually, the open source term comes from this, right? Because all the others we call closed source, like all proprietary, shareware, right? Freeware, whatever. They give only object code, means we call closed code, source. So this is called open source, right? So source code is coming because Richard Stallman's second freedom, right? So then third freedom, I think a lot of you all also would like to use, freedom to distribute, to help your neighbors. That means if one of you all have a copy of a software, so he said you should have the freedom to give it to your friend or take it home and use it, right, at your home computer. So that freedom is never been given. Like, you know that in Microsoft, you have purchased MS Office for your office computer. But you can say that at home also I have a computer, I'm doing the same work, but you have to buy another license because you can't use the same license for that purpose. So these are two computers, right? So, but he said, no, you should be able to share that help neighbors. So this is more like a philosophical thing, right, rather than technical thing. But that's why, like I said, these are all freedoms are for end user. Okay. The fourth freedom to understand, I have to take another example, right? So I will take the white screen, and then let's take a small example here as well, right? So please get involved with me and then ask questions. So here, what I'm going to get this scenario is something like this. Let's say I am a software developer. And I have developed some core banking software. Okay. And then I said, okay, anyone who would like to get my core banking. So let's say it's, I will put a price tag, let's say 500,000. So this is a price of the core bank. So let's say all of you all are bankers, right? So then all of you all are bankers. Like, so I will take one of, like, I will just name you all as A. So this is another person B. There's another person called C, right? So you all, there are 3 people who are interested in my software, and then the first person A pays me 500,000 and purchase that. And then he can give a copy to B, right? So like it's just free. So that is possible because it says like you can share with neighbors. This is like now I'm just trying to talk with respect to FOSS. Now don't compare. So how can you do that with the other software? No, like this is just FOSS I'm talking about, right? So that's why like, so this discussion, don't confuse yourself with shareware, even not public domain, right? This is only FOSS. So now A has given to B a copy free of charge because he's good friend or whatever, right? Similarly, C is also a friend of A, but he can say, I have money, I can, thanks for informing me. So there's a nice software, so I can buy that because they say you are a banker. So this C bank also have purchased, right? So B bank is like a startup, right? So that's what like, so they don't have money, 500,000 to get this core banking, right? So now all these 3 people can be using, whereas Ajanta has sold 2 copies and there are 3 users as such, right? So this is also another difference when it comes to software. So same copy I can sell to C as well, because let's say I have created a software called something core banking and then I have sold it to A. So the same thing is what I'm selling to C. That's why like in software, you should not look at it as a commodity like a car. Let's say I'm Toyota company, like I'm the owner of Toyota company. So I have created a new Lexus car where he has purchased that. So there is the person C is asking like, okay, you can't do this one, right? Unless you sell it to the other person. So if C wants to buy another Lexus from me, I had to manufacture that from the beginning, and then only I can give him the car. But software is not like that. That's where like Bill Gates was able to get the richest person on earth, because by doing a business like software, that's how like you can make money, because just the copy is as good as the original, right? So whereas in other commodities, it's not like that, right? That's why like, so you should not look at it like, okay, here someone can say, so now with this method, what will happen is like you lost 500,000, right? That is true, because if B wants, he has to purchase from me. But however, so this is software. That's why like what Richard Stallman was saying, to software, like we should have those freedoms as well. Now, let's say this is going on like that. But now because these are coming with source code, by the way. So I'm giving source code. Right? So Bank C has a very good IT team. And they are developing further this core banking software. Now it supports ATM functionality, right? Just to say work from home, right? Functionality, everything they have developed this. Can they do that? Yes, they can, because they got the source code. So then the IT department can add more, right? So more functionalities like that. So this the green color part is where the this team has added, right? So it's quite a lot, right? They have added as well. So then they can also now sell this, right? So then this is going as now 1 million, because there's a lot of functionality, right? So now another banker called D has purchased this software from C. Is this possible? Yes, because you have given source code, right? So they can develop, they have the freedom to do that, right? And then that's why like up to like those 3 freedoms, there was no monetary value was discussed, right? So there's you never we never discussed monetary value. Sorry, I think I lost that. there's no monetary value here. Right? So I just clear here now. It's easy to see. There's no monetary value like we have discussed, right? So that's where like if someone says money, there's no money is being mentioned. So then you can do whatever, right? So then I will just draw like that part, only that part discussion. So then Ajanta was here, right? So he sold it to C, and then C purchased it for 500, and then modified version, the D got it for 1 million, right? So then that's okay. Like maybe he can sell so many copies, right? He make it 1 million like DEF people, right? So whereas Ajanta only got 500,000, right? By selling to C, that is how it can be, right? So then because my functionality is very less because they want more, right? That's what they are happy with this. But only restriction with this fourth freedom is whenever C, right, gives that software to any of the others, he has to provide the source code. Right? Source code has to be given. So that is what it says. The freedom to improve the program is there, and release your improvements to the public in the sense like release means that's what like public here he said like make it open, right? That is where like you have to give whatever the modifications. You can't say that, okay, no, these are our bank IT department, we were developing that, but you have, because my license agreement says that. So this is what, this is Richard Stallman says. If you violate any of these, we can take legal action. This is what license agreement is all about, right? So these 4 freedoms you have to maintain, right? If you are not maintaining the 4th freedom, so I can like I am the original owner, right? Even though now if you ask like this question, there is a new software like because this core banking with so many functionalities, C has developed that. Like who owns this? But they make money. That's all, right? He doesn't have to give any money. It doesn't say like whenever you improve 50% of the profit you get has to be given to the original owner. There's no such statement. So, but the copyright is with the original owner. Okay. So that's why like 4th freedom is a bit different, right? So that comes like when you improve, like improvements has to be provided with the source code. Okay. Yeah. Any questions on the Richard Stallman's 4 freedoms, and then any issues like, so whenever you have some free time, you can go to this URL, and I hope that URL still works. There's a nice video. Richard Stallman himself talks about free and open source software. Okay, so there are 4 freedoms. So there's no monetary value. The money doesn't, no discussion here. So if someone asks like, can open source software, right, we call FOSS software, sold for a price? Yes. Does it need to be always free of charge? No. Can you run for any purpose? Yes. Will the source code has to be given? Yes. And can you share with others? Yes. And can you improve? Yes. If you improve, you have to give the source code. If you don't give the source code, you are violating. Okay. So this is what Richard Stallman came up with, and this is what the movement, like he was trying to get, free software movement. Then GNU is a project that he want to have, right? Now with that, I will take a small 1 or 2 slides about the licensing, because then we'll come to open source. This is not anything open source. This is in general. Yes.
So one question, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Is there any way to validate the value of that software?
No, it's all up to like the software developer, the copyright owner, to tell this is the price. So yes, like you are trying to say, like, can we assess like how much
Yeah,
this is?
can we go to the market and see what's the real value of that software, or the effort?
Not to the market, because now let's say I have developed co-banking software for 500,000, right? But only thing is, like, you might be able to find another one which is 200,000, maybe better than mine. So then you can buy that, right? That's because it's very difficult to say like this is the standard price. There's no such thing, right? But however, if you go higher, like, things will not survive, right? So that is one other thing. But however, now let's look at, that's where like even like Microsoft also, they're not making like huge costs like even MS Office, right? They are trying to like put it to a price affordable, because they don't want another party comes in, put it further down, like, and then get that whole market share. Anyone has used this? What is this? Kingsoft? Kingsoft. I think Kingsoft or Kingsoft. I think Kingsoft, right? So that if you have, so that's another company. I think that's a Chinese-based company, right? So Kingsoft. So they also provide. They give like MS Office like thing, right? So, but however, a bit cheaper than whatever Microsoft is giving. So likewise, but no one was able to kill like sort of Microsoft Office, right? That's why like today Microsoft Office is a dominant software, right? So if they really had a very high price, probably some people would have come and captured that market, right? So that is there. But however, but for example, now if I say CorelDRAW, right, or like Maya, like there are 3D animation software. So those basically are very, very expensive, right? And they are like millions of rupees. Yeah. So there's no such, like, for your question, there's no method like to assess like this is the price it should be.
Okay, sir.
Now coming back here, this is what a license is. So it's a very important thing. A software license is a legal instrument, right, governing the usage or the distribution of what? A copyright protected software. So that is where like the owner is coming, right? So this is not for FOSS, right? For this, just for any software except that public domain software, because they don't have a license, right? Any other software, right? You agree with the license means you are signing a contract. It's a legal instrument, and then how to use and how to distribute that one, right? And then because who says that? That is the copyrighted software publisher. So except public domain. So typically software license grant the end user permission to use one or more copies, like not more copies with Microsoft, only one copy, right? But some can be, right? Such a way that otherwise you constitute infringement of the software. And then under copyright laws, right, of that particular country, right, we can take. So that's where, like, if you are violating Microsoft Office, right, in Sri Lanka, you don't need to like take to US and take legal action, because Sri Lanka has enough copyright laws. So under that, Microsoft can take legal action because that's a legal agreement, right? So in effect, software license act as a promise from the software publisher, that is the developer, right, not to sue the end user engaging in activities would normally be constitute exclusively rights belonging to the software publisher, because software developer is what, like having the full rights. So some of the rights are given to you with the money, of course, some without the money, right? For example, freeware, they don't charge you, right? But they give with that obligation. So you have to use as it is. So that's what you have to read and understand that. But for example, proprietary commercial software, they give that for a fee and you have to pay for that every year, right? And then you use the way they told to you, right? So that is what all about, just basic what a software license is. So then let's see what a open source software license. So then with the free and open source software, right, in contrast to proprietary software, the ownership of a particular copy of the software does not remain with the software publisher. This is very interesting, right? So now you can see ownership of a particular copy, right? This is a copy. For example, take my example where was there, right? And then I sold to C. That's what I just took that example. And then C was using that copy, and then they developed further, and then they were given to D another a big one, right? With including more components. So what in open source they do is this copy belongs to C, right? That's what I said. Ownership of a particular copy of the software does not remain with the software publisher. The software publisher means copyright owner, that is the Rail developer. Instead, ownership of the copy transferred to the end user, that is whoever C user. But you have to remember this one. So this is like another new term is coming. As a result, the end user by default afforded all rights granted by copyright law to the copy owner. Note that the copy owner, that is this copy owner is here. This guy is not the same as the copyright owner. So copyright owner is always Ajanta, because that is who created that software, right? So he's a copy owner. Then he also becomes a copy owner later on. But still both of them, the copyright owner is this person. So that's why like in open source, that's the only difference is that, but you will never have a copy owner context in a proprietary or like object oriented, sorry, not object oriented, object code only software, right? That is a shareware, freeware, or commercial software, because they just have given certain permissions for you to use that or distribute that. But in open source, you get a copy, and then actually this name also coined with Richard Stallman, like he's the one who said this new name, copy owner, right? So that's where like in the exam also I have asked, what is the difference between copy owner and copyright owner? Copyright owner is the real original first author of the program. Copy owner is whoever who purchased that with the source code, right? And he is going to be a copy owner. So can the copy owner modify? Yes. Can the copy owner sell? Yes. Like all these things, I think I have taken that example now. That's what I took an example for you to, rather than asking like so many questions, so that to clarify that. So the finally here, additionally, the free software license typically grants the end user extra rights, which would otherwise be reserved by the software publisher, because that's where like you can so develop and you can sell that, you can make money. So you, like in my case, like you purchase for 500,000, you make it like 1 million, one copy. Let's say he made 3 copies, right? He made 3 million. So he just purchased 500, 500,000. So he has make a profit of 2.5 million by doing software development, being a bank, right? So they have made 2.5 million rupees income by software development. Right? Okay, so I'll take another now. So this is where like this FOSS discussion. So after Richard Stallman in 80s, like came up with this idea with the GNU project, this was like made it real, right? So that people start using. Any of y'all are using any FOSS software? Can anyone tell me? Yes, no, like if yes, what sort of software you are using? FOSS? No one? All of you all are either freeware, shareware, or proprietary software users. I don't think you all are not public domain software users. Anyone knows of any? Okay, looks like no. Now with this first thing was there, right? And then 80s and 90s, people were then quite happy, and then some people were using that. Again, even here in this class also, how many people are here now today? Sort of 38 people here, but those people not using, probably, I don't know, maybe you might have heard about, but you're not a user, right? So that's why like not a huge percentage as such, right? But there are some opportunities, right? And you can use it. But again, then the FOSS also had a two different ideas. So like Richard M. Stallman, that is the father of this. So he had these 4 freedoms. And then there is another group of people, like other non-RMS, right? People came up with a 3 freedom, right? Model. 3 freedom is actually whatever we discussed out of the first freedom, that's there. Second freedom, that's there. Third freedom, that's there. Fourth freedom, not. That is like you can use for any purpose. Just I put a quote here, any purpose. This is like you should study how to then, or source code has to be there. Let's see here, source code. Right? Third one, you can distribute and share with your neighbors. That is also okay. But then they said, okay, we should have the freedom, like where my example I was taking, this is me, and then C was here. So they developed further, and then they were developed. And then when they were selling this, right? So I was given source code. They said, when this guy has the freedom, he should have the freedom not to give. So this is freedom to the utmost level, right? Not to give source code. So that means it's going to be closed, right? So Richard Stallman says, no, you have to give source code, right? That's why like actually, so then the argument was Richard Stallman's is not, that is, even though he called freedom, so people argued it is not a freedom. It is like you are making us to give the source code. So if it is freedom, it has to be only 3, first 3, right? So then there were 2 groups, right? So then both got popular as well. This is what some people like, because then this is good, where like they become a software company itself, right? Because now they are giving only the objects. So I put here OBJ, that is just color. So now it's OBJ, that is object code only, right? Here source code. So this is where like the non-Richard Stallman's, right, group, like, so then I will say type 1, type 2. Only type 2 you can do this. Right? Type 1 you have to give the source code. So this is how like sort of like a breakup, right? But the argument was, if it is freedom, give us total freedom. So then Richard Stallman said, okay, mine was freedom plus openness. Because he wanted to keep the source code open. Actually, Richard Stallman's argument was, like I said, he's kind of a philosopher as well. Because he said, like, when a software was built, if someone closes, like it will not evolve further. What he said was, like, if a software was built and then the source code is being available all the time, the newer generations, right, they will do further development on that and make it enhanced. Another 20 years time, another set of people will develop further with more functionality, and then that will be, so that he said the software will be there forever, people to enjoy. Because if you somehow allow this 4th freedom to be removed, and then what happens is it's going to be object code. Thereafter, only people who have money, right? And then they can't really further develop. Only C can develop now because C has closed that, right? So that is an issue, right? So as well, like, so this is full freedom. So this is freedom, but in a way, some people say it's a controlled freedom. That's why, like, sometimes people say that. So when, let's say, take about kids as well, so that if we give freedom to the kids, but if we give like unlimited freedom, so then basically they will go to like different ends as well, right? So that's why like it says control freedom is better, right? So similarly, Richard Stallman is also saying that. So it has to be freedom is there, but then this freedom sort of like he says openness rather than freedom, right? Some people argue this is to be freedom, so then this you should give the freedom to close as well. So this is what, so these are the two groups that there are two names for them, right? So then so this is like there are only two categories, open source, right? So this is a breakup, like this is the original one, that is freedom and openness. Then it's called copyleft. Again, this is another term called Richard Stallman came up with copyleft. This is not copyrighted, right? Copyleft license means this Richard Stallman's model, that is type 1, what I have just said a few minutes ago. So then the other method, total freedom, right? Which is we call permissive license. So if someone says this is a permissive license software, so that means that you get the source code, but then if you do any modifications, you have the mandate to close that if you want. If you want, right? You need not to do compulsory, but if you want, you can give with the next modifications also with the source code, right? Then it will be more like copyleft, but you have the freedom if you want to close it. Now, this is where like sometimes useful, like you are a company, right? So let's say you have a very good IT team, right? Let's say you found a nice HRM software, right? That is a kind of FOSS, right? And then it is coming with source code. So then you said, you IT department, guys, get that source code, right? And then develop, right? So let's develop that for our requirement. And then, so this is now our developed one. So this is the previous one was, this is the original whoever developers code, right? So you have developed further. So now if you want to use it only within your organization, because you don't like you are looking at competitive advantage here, right? So what you can do here is you can close this. And then if someone wants, we can give, we can sell that, or we can even give free of charge, but just giving only the object code, right? But here you got the source code. So the source code was here, but you are giving object code. So to take the competitive advantage, yes, permissive licenses are good for a business, right? So as a CFO, you might say like, okay, IT guy, like go and get that software and let's build on that, because then we might need to spend less time, and because it's already happening the HRM part. So let's try to get more like whatever the requirements we want, and then we can maybe close that. But you can close only if it is permissive. But if it says it's copyleft license, you can't close that, right? So you can develop, but if you close, that people will going to take legal action because you are closing them. You are not supposed to close, because fourth freedom under Richard Stallman copyleft license is you have to give the source code whenever you do any modification. Is that clear? So this one is like, the second one is like someone can say it's more business oriented. The first one is more user oriented, user friendly, like because it's like always, because Richard Stallman is looking at from the user's endpoint. The second model, like permissive model, is more looking at from the business perspective. Yeah, any questions? Is that clear? Okay, so it's no questions. I will continue. And so this is what the software license, like we can have proprietary software, and then we can have free and open source. Free and open source have permissive type, or it can be copyleft, right? So this is like 4 freedoms. This is sort of like 3 freedoms. Now let's really come up with these licenses. Now Richard Stallman said this method is called copyleft. So copyleft has only one license type, that's in a way good, right? So that only one, that license name is called General Public License, and GNU is coming because of the project, right? So it's called GNU GPL, but just GPL is also okay. So GPL is General Public License. If any software says General Public License, it's basically Richard-Stallman's software. Okay, so that whatever the license is aimed at giving the end user significant permissions, such as to redistribute, reverse engineering, or like you can modify, and these permissions not entirely free of obligations because you have to provide the source code after the modifications, because if any modifications made and redistributed by the end user must include the source code. If not, legal action can be taken, right? So that's so if you have ever heard a software called GPL, it is a Richard-Stallman's model license. So then permissive, if you ask, so permissive has three types of software three types of freedoms. Permissive, there are quite a many license types, right? And I just took only three common ones. Free BSD, that is MIT and Apache, and there are quite a few others as well. So Apache is also very popular, right? And MIT BSD is also popular. So these are, so here Apache license means if someone says like, I have a software which is Apache license, right? So then you know it is permissive type. That means you can get, it is coming with source code. So then you can modify, but when you modify your big one, right, you can just give only the object code because that license says you can do that, right? But if someone says this is a GPL software, here's a source code, so then you modify again. But then if you make it object code, you are violating and legal action can be taken. Okay, so that is like say Apache. Right. So any of you all have used any GPL software? Yes, no? Okay, I will sort of like, okay, give you a small activity so that we can check that. Okay. So there is a question. So you can pick any number, like whatever the software that you have used, you can tick. So we'll see like so while you do that, I will try to get some details for that to display to you all. Questions are to see whether how many people have voted now. Okay, we have 32 people have voted. Okay. Right. We have about 88% have voted. So then I will just take that and I will share the results with you, and then we will discuss this. So you can see like out of those people, 81% had used Adobe, right? And 78% have used VLC, 72% using Photoshop, right? No one is using GIMP. Chrome is like almost everyone is using. And MATLAB, there's about 19% is using. Now, out of this, first, okay, now I have to share, but I will share my whole screen, then take one at a time. So I hope you all can see Adobe window here. Is that right? I hope you all can see all my screen. Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now here, this is Adobe license, right? Oops. So Adobe is like copyrighted this Adobe, the Adobe logo, Adobe PDF logo, and everything, trademarks of Adobe United States, right? And then basically, third party notice that you have to go to the read more details, but this is a proprietary license. This is Adobe license, right? So all right reserved, right? That is Adobe. So then that's a proprietary software, right? So then what you all have said, Adobe, you are using a proprietary software. Make sure that later when you install next time, or like you can go to the Adobe site as well and read more about their licensing. Now, you know, VLC. This is the VLC. I hope you all can see. So I will take about VLC. This is VLC software. It says VLC is a free and open source media player, encoder and streamer. Okay, let's see the license. The license is called GNU GPL license. Right? So it's a GPL license software. So you all are using a GPL. So 78% of the students in this class are using a GPL software. So this is a GPL software. That means you can even download the source code. What you all are downloading is object code. That's what you all are using, right? But if you all want, you can further develop on this VLC player, and then you can customize, right? And of course, remember that if you do some modifications, you have to give the source code, right? Anyone asks, because you are not supposed to close that end, because you can sell as well. So add some more functionality VLC, you can make some money, right? That is all right, because this is GPL software. GPL has 3 versions, version 1, version 2, version 3. I didn't talk about I'm not looking at from exam point of view when I did put it the notes, but this is called version 2. So that's there are 3 versions. Knowing that is enough, but I don't want you all to know each and every license differences. So these are the real authors of the VLC, right? So I will tell what has happened there as well. So you can see there's a whole lot of people are the programming, right? So that's a big team, right? But they are making a license of GNU. So this is not Richard Stallman, right? This is some other set of people. Photoshop, actually, I don't have. Photoshop is a proprietary software, so that you have to pay and get. I hope this 72% using Photoshop, you are using with licenses. I think I should ask another question there. Is it a license of Photoshop or not? Chrome also similar, right? If I just open Chrome, this is about Chrome setting, help about Google Chrome. You can see further down. It's actually Google, right? But Chrome is made possible with the Chromium open source project. There is an open source project called Chromium, right? With that only they have taken this, right? So then you have to go to Chromium and see what sort of license, because Chrome is not the main one, right? So Google is also taking from another project, right, called Chromium, and from the Chromium only that they are developing further as a Chrome. So then you have to read about Chromium license, then only like what Google has done. So probably they will be giving it. So you can see like it's not very clearly said here. Chromium is an open source. It doesn't say like yet. Sorry, I'll go a little bit. So I will not. Maybe you all can read, and then since you know this, right? So it's an open source project.
So
right?
below they mentioned BSD license.
See, that is what I'm just trying to see.
Right.
Here, no? Okay, here. Except for others, otherwise, Creative Commons, and the examples are licensed under BSD. So this is a permissive type license, right? So that's a BSD license, means that we don't have to worry about that is permissive. So then Google has taken that. Google has taken that code, and then they are developing further. So if they want, they can close it as well. I don't think Google has closed the source there, right, in the Chrome as well. And MATLAB is a proprietary software, right? It is also like if you are using, you have to use it as proper license software. So you can see here. So you are also using some of the open source software licenses, right? And then let me share my slides, and then I'll come back there. Sorry. Here. So there are some software, right, are permissive type that you are using. There are some are GPL license, right, that you are using, right? and then others can be proprietary licenses as well. So here, these three are permissive type: Apache, BSD, MIT, and GPL is copyleft. So provide copyright protection, all yes, because they are all copyrighted software. Can be used with commercial software, all yes, can be used with commercial software. Provides an explicit patent license, only Apache provides that, others don't give a patent license. Can be used in proprietary closed source projects. Any of the permissive, yes, but GPL, you can't, it's false, right? So this is what we just look at it. What we can do with what you call VLC player. And then anyone has used this Orange HRM. This is also another product which is like related to Sri Lanka as well. Orange HRM is very popular HRM tool. This is like I just put GNU GPL license, right? So you can download, right? Again, if you are looking at a HRM solution, right? And if you have a very good IT team, so you can ask them to start from that source code, you can download. Only thing is, if you further develop, you have to give the source code for them. You have to open that as well, because this is GPL, right? And people who are using Photoshop, right? But if you are, let's say you are making business, you are your company, or you are running your own startup, right? And then you are using Photoshop because that's your core business part, because you need Photoshop. But let's say you have 40 people working under you, all 40 are using, but you have just purchased only 2-3 licenses. That is not good, right? Because then 37 plus like people are using proprietary, pirated way. So then this GNU, like this is a GNU, another project, right? Called GIMP, GIMP, GNU Image Manipulations Program. This is almost like Photoshop. You can do a lot of Photoshop stuff, but of course, if you are a Photoshop user, of course, you are more used to that particular interface. So once you get used to this, basically this is GNU GPL license. You don't have to worry. And the good news here is, because all this GNU GPL is giving free of charge. Now, this VLC player would have been like 5,000 rupees per year. You have to buy a license, right? Because that's still it can be GNU. They will be giving source code, right? And then your company has purchased this, let's say 25,000, but then it's in your computer. And when you came to MBA lectures, one of your friends saw that and say, can I have that? You can say, okay, our company has purchased for 25,000 because I don't know whether I can give that. But if you really know the license, yes, you can, because this is a GNU GPL license. You can share with others. There's no issue, right? That's your company has purchased that. So you can give a copy to a friend, right? That is not a problem. So this can be for a cost, right? Monetary value, but you can see like there's a huge team for VLC, right? But if you are making money like from this software, so why not you can donate some money, right? That's where like, what those people are more fascinated about what Richard Stallman did. That's why like a lot of people have devoted their software after developing to GPL license, right? So even just GIMP is like that. So actually, if you make GIMP and do your business, because all 40 can have proper license software, and then you might be making millions of rupees from that. So then later on, you can give a donation to the GIMP consortium or GIMP team, right? Because I made some lot of money, so that through your tool, right? So then maybe if you have future development, that's, you have to provide some money, because those people, programmers, there are a huge lot. You see that VLC player itself, there's a huge team, right? So some of them might be not directly working for VLC, but they might be like software company, they are working, but they are free time, they are devoting for this VLC project to happen. That's where like these things have come for free. So if you ask like how these things are free, just basically because like people have devoted that particular software to the FOSS call. Now here, like if you really go to VLC website later on next time when you want to download the next version, when you go to download, it says like whatever exe file, that is object codes, but you can see source code is also there. you can download the source code. So if you are not sure about VLC object code that you got, right, to your company, right? So you can say, your IT guys, go and bring VLC of source code and compile it. First check the code, see whether no viruses, nothing on the code itself, and then how it is running. So then after that, you compile it. Then I will ask like all our company staff to use the version that given by the IT department, because that is being checked and compiled object code. And then if you make money, that's why like you can even donate their website itself, asking for donations like you can give, but they don't charge money. So these are some more stuff. Like I said, Photoshop, you can get GIMP, right? So if you are using Microsoft Visio without licensing, there's something called Dia. And then if you are using CorelDRAW, right? Macromedia freehand, it's very popular. Like a lot of desktop publishing guys now use Inkscape. So Inkscape is a GPL license software. These are all I'm showing GPL software. There are quite a lot of permissive software licenses as well. The Maya 3D Max is a very popular graphics designs. Blender 3D is available. So then Adobe, like those things, Adobe, like this PageMaker or InDesign. So Scribus, I think called Scribus, that for web again publishing stuff. So there are quite a lot of things that I have put here URLs for you all to go and have a look, so that you can get some advantage. Okay. So I hope you all got a point there, like what open source can provide, and then the cost as well. That's why like it has become kind of free, because those developers want to devote that, right, especially to this person, right? So he is also some kind of undergraduate student called Linus Torvalds. So he was writing, actually doing an assignment for the university, right? So the lecturer has given them a small OS and asked them to add more functionality. So he has done more than what the lecturer wanted, and a fully fledged OS, right? And then he was very fascinated about Richard Stallman's GPL. So then he said, because the source code license, like is like this is also another good example. It's like a public domain. The lecturer has given like a public domain software for the students to work on. So there's no license agreement, nothing. So the students can do whatever they want on that particular small code. So this guy took that and developed a fully fledged OS. And then without he calling his own proprietary license, I would call it GPL. So that's what had happened. So then Linux and GNU tools got together, because now this is also GPL, right? So that's why like today it's very popular, Linux. Linux is an operating system, by the way. It's a system software. So that GIMP, right, VLC, there are so many others which I have showed you are all application software. So a lot of people worked because he made the movement, but then a lot of people, like thousands of programmers, right, around the world. And then they made up a GNU Linux, right, environment. That's why like today you can get that as Ubuntu or Fedora or like Debian. There are so many. So that these are like full packages, like where you have operating system, GPL, or either permissive, and then application software also you can use GPL or permissive. And mostly they are free of charge as well. So that's the reality, right? That is what we are today getting. So it's where, like I said here, Linux is like a lot of people know Linux and they say, that is FOSS, right? Actually, Linux is part of FOSS, because FOSS actually started with him. It's a huge thing, right? So that's where like FOSS has two branches, right? with GPL and then permissive type. So this Linux is FLOSS or FOSS, right? Because either FOSS or FLOSS same, but FOSS is more than Linux, right? Now, for example, if you use GIMP and do business and then make money, so that you are using proper licenses and making a legal way of making money. Because if you are using Photoshop without proper licensing in a pirated way, so that is not a right way of earning money. So similar, let's say you are doing a lot of training or like courses. Now you all are also using Moodle, that is a GPL software, by the way. So Moodle is a GPL software. So now you all also can use Moodle in your company for training, and then you can reduce a lot of training costs. So there are Moodle-like learning management systems like Blackboard and things like that. So they are very expensive. So rather than using them, right, you can use Moodle, right, so that you can make save money, like sort of. So like we are looking at now, because I said start of this lecture, software is very expensive. So if you take good decisions, right, you can save money, right? And I will tell another story now, and then I will come to the second bullet. Now, let's say you are at a bank, right? And then you are using some core banking software, right? Which you didn't really worry about that time, what sort of license these guys are having, right? But you just purchased the core banking software and then you are using with your data, right? So this is your data. So now last 7 years, let's assume you are using this software, core banking software, which you have to pay like, let's say 1 million. Rupees every year per year, right? So then you are still running, and then later on you found one of your friend who is in another bank using another nice core banking, right, with a lot of functionality, right? Maybe it's even 750,000, right? So then you decided from next year onwards, I'm not going to use this particular core banking, right? But I will go with this, right? And someone said like this is FOSS as well, so that's very good, and whatever, right? So let's say like maybe I have convinced you. But by the way, by the time you all are using here commercial or proprietary software, so you are saying that okay, after 2021 December, so we are not renewing your licenses because I'm going with a new product. So they will say, okay, but only thing is now they will say, okay, they can't provide the data because you have not signed with your agreement, right? You have just purchased the software. So they are in their own format. So then they can't give you, because if you are not in your initial agreement, you have not put like at the end of the contract, you have to provide all the data, the format that we ask. If you are not sign up that way, so they will say no, because it's on our own proprietary way, we can't provide you the data, right? So yeah, you don't need to pay us, but we can't give you, because we can't give the source code to you. So then only you will see how the data is being stored, right? So then basically what will happen, because remember today, the data is the most important thing, right? So that's data is oil, what we call, right? But now what happens is after 7 years of business, right, all your data now with someone else, right? So now you can't even go with that software. You have to go with him, because just like that is what we call locking state, right? So sometimes I know some government sector, and I don't know, maybe in the private sector as well, you might be in such a situation where initially you never have thought about the licenses, right? And you went with some proprietary thing, but now your data is also in that, right? So at least like whenever you sign a contract, whenever you go for a OS, or sorry, not OS software, right? Always make sure that your data has to say that it has to belongs to our, right? That's ours. Then at the end of the contract, you have to provide us our data in this particular formats, right? You have to provide, because then only they have to provide with those formats. Then only with that you can go with another product. So a lot of people don't realize that, and they will always get locked in, right? So that's vendor lock-in, what we call. So after that, you just have to go with them. It's a very, very bad thing, especially with proprietary software, right? So whenever you go with FOSS, the good thing is because source code is open, right? The source code is there. Because of that, no one can say that, okay, we can't give, because you know how they have been stored. And then you can ask the other company. So this is a code like, so that can you write some functions to transfer our data to your format and then do it? Yes, that they can do that, right? Because if it is, we normally call open source open standards. Open standards will be used because standard means open means because code is there, then the standard is going to be open, right? In a closed source thing, it will be locked in. So you can get locked in as well whenever. So you have to pay a lot of attention onto that. And also like these are like reasons for using FOSS. I'm just trying to highlight here. And since if you have IT department, so you can ask the IT department to develop further customized way you want, right? And then you can use them. There are lots of open source software that to customize. These are some more examples, just like Windows to like mapping, right? Similar ones, right? So if you are looking at so like MS Office, like you have to use, I know like a lot of people make a lot of pirated copies there because you don't go with good way. But then there are other LibreOffice, OpenOffice, there are, and there's another one I said Kingsoft, right? They also give, I can't remember what their name was, like Kingsoft also called some office or something. That is like another proprietary thing, right? But it's cheaper than MS Office. But these are not apples and apples, right? This is apples and oranges, right? So then you can't compare, but you have to look at whether to do your functionality. If this is more than enough, right? Then you don't have to pay for this. But let's say if this is not enough, so then you can migrate to here and then use this proprietary software. That's another different story. You can use GIMP to start with. So then your IT guys or the person who is running says, so this GIMP can't do this and that, but Photoshop, I can do that. And then you need that, then you should buy that software and use it. That's that. I'm not saying like always use the other way around, but that's where like you have to make correct decisions because your investment has to be done proper. That is what we were talking about, open source versus proprietary software, right? And then basically the difference between FOSS, right? And I just compare with proprietary, right? So proprietary can be freeware, shareware as well. Proprietary or freeware, shareware, right? But I didn't take public domain, but that's it. I said it's a public domain. It's a separate class of software, right? Only few are there because of that, not many. But this is where like you will be, right? So you will be using, but only thing is software privacy is very important, piracy, right? So that you should not pirate, use pirated software, right? So then in that case, I would say just go here and get it from the FOSS because there can be a lot of things, right? So that different types of trees, but then their fruits are different, but then you can get your work done the way you want, and then you can have a peace of mind because you're not violating any, and then you are under any obligations. So benefits of FOSS, basically, we can say it will be cost saving, right? So I will take the security one separately. Reliability is going to be very good as well. Interoperability issue is also like you can see now VLC player just take, right? So VLC player is it's an open source software, right? Whenever open source comes to your mind, you get Linux. Whenever VLC comes to your thing, and when I say FOSS, you get it's a Linux thing, but you all were using Win10, right? So then, or it can be running on Android as well. So that's where like, so these are interoperable, right? For software. Just don't say like you have to have Linux to run this, right? There's no open source software says that always we have to have Linux to run, right? So system software can be anything, but your application software, right, can be something else. So that restriction is not there. And this is the most important thing, open standards, avoidance in vendor lock-in, right? And then developing local software industry and then localization. Then you can do like, because you have the code, you can localize as well. So this is like to get to Sinhala and Tamil, like then you can do that as well because the code is available. So that's quite easy. Now, if I ask from you all, from security point of view, whether FOSS is secure or proprietary software is secure, which one is secure? What would you all like to say here? But with some justification. Anyone would like to take that? It's all right. You can give a wrong answer, right? No need to be the right answer. Is FOSS secure or proprietary software is secure? Because these are the arguments people do have, because FOSS is open source. So people can see that, right? If there's a error bug, right? So you can exploit that. Whereas proprietary is closed. So because of that, since it's closed, people won't see that, right? But if you look at it today, when you see the open source some error, so there are lots of good guys are seeing this code, and then they can quickly rectify that, right? Whereas in the open source, the proprietary thing, yeah, that's someone has put a chat also, like this is closed, it can be secure. That's true, because only the developers will see that, no one else will be seeing that code, right? But if you look at today, a lot of attacks or viruses are happening towards Windows machines. The reason is like, because these bad guys or hackers are also want to get some thrill out of that, right? Because if you say that, okay, I have hacked open source software, because someone says, so what, like, because the source code is there was an error, so that's what you have identified. But if we have hacked an object code, right, only program some way, right? That is what we call true reverse engineering. You are a talented person, right? So that's why like people always tend to hack closed source software, because that's where like the enthusiasm, right? But however, from security's point of view, always the good thing is with FOSS, like there are a lot of people are seeing that, right? So because of that, whenever there's a problem in this code, it can be rectified by them very quickly, right? So before like one is going to be exploiting, right? Because people will be seeing that. So that sort of debate is there. So that's why like I'm not going to come to a conclusion saying that FOSS is secure, right? But however, there are some misunderstandings people do have. Like if this is a FOSS software, and then say it's like virus free, it's it's wrong, because anything can have a virus. Virus means someone can exploit and do something here, right? Because it can be a proprietary like Windows, right? Windows, we know that a lot of viruses are coming, right? So then how can it be? Because no one knows how Windows is working, but still it is possible. They do to reverse engineering. But a virus can come in to Linux as well, right? But it's not very popular. One thing is there are two reasons. One thing is like not many people are using, because the reporting number is very less, because we see that less than probably 5% we are talking about end users are using Linux, right? I don't think here anyone is using probably, right? Then 90-95% is using Windows. But that is the end user level. But if you look at it from the server side, right, I would say like 80 to 90% use Linux, right? And then like any other Linux related software, but as servers, right? This is what I'm talking about. Now, if you take University of Colombo, also like most of our, like I think 80% are Linux machines, and only about 10 to 15% is we have Windows machines, right? Very rare, very little, right? Because when it comes to the server side, that we are using more and more Linux. So that's the usage statistics setup, right? And then if you look the security point of view as well, like client side, that not many reports are coming. That is because less usages. Now, final slide on this, like how can we make money with FOSS, right? So if you take Microsoft, what they are doing is basically they are selling the license. They are selling the license. That's like you all are purchasing a software that is object code with the license, and then we are using. What open source community, like including Richard Stallman, they say is software has to be given free. Free or like accessible, right? Right? And then we can give support, we can charge for support, we can charge for training, we can charge for customization, we can charge for integration, we can charge for certification, we can charge for warranties, like all sort of these things. There are so many other ways, right? That's why like a lot of software companies, even this Orange HRM, so they give GPL software, but they will say, okay, they can support you, or they can train your staff, or even they can customize or integrate with your existing systems. They will charge for that. So that's how they do, they make money. Okay. So any questions on that, or anything that you want to clarify? Like how to make money. So this is revenue model is different. This is called service revenue model, right? Rather than license-based revenue model. So what others like Photoshop, or like someone said like they're using MATLAB, right? So those are more license-based software. Sorry, making money. So one finally, like I would like to say that open source saves you many money, sort of like because when you try to focus onto investments, right? But of course, later on, if you that feature is not enough, right, for you all, you can go for another proprietary software. But when you move to proprietary software, that's what I said. Like one thing is because the features you are going, that is one thing. But if you are going with your systems, right, you have to be very careful, especially with your data, right? Because if it is in a very locked in state, that later on you will have, just because you have to keep on using that software, there's no other way to get exit from there, right? And also the open source software, not all open source software is free. That's why like there are quite a lot of open source GPL and permissive software that you have to pay and get it, right? And then this was like even if you look at Red Hat is a very popular server software, right? And it was up to some time it was given free, but later on they start charging. That is possible, right? So now it's like licenses are pretty expensive, right? You have to pay like few millions rupees to get in a server environment, right? But still people do that because it's a very good software, as well as they will be looking after that as well. And not all proprietary software are is licensed for a fee, because there are, we have seen freeware and like that there are. So just whenever you heard proprietary, it's not for a fee always. There are free ones as well. But open source don't say that, because this free is like initially I told freedom, but now this is like free of charge or free beer or free lunch, right? So then open source software, I would say that a lot is free, but there are some you have to pay and get. Okay, so that is what I want to discuss with you all. And yeah, if you have any questions, I would like to take here, so because there's another lecture that is on security. I will probably do next time, because we have done 4 lectures. Like the last lecture, I will take that on security and discuss that on that. Just, we can go at a stretch on that security discussion. But if you have any questions, I can take here and discuss with you all. Yeah, please, you can ask any questions.
So in general,
Yeah.
we use, like in Sri Lanka, most people are using the pirated versions of the softwares now. So in countries like US also, is the situation same? I mean, within the general public?
No, I think it's not. Like there are sites you can go and check, like, and then you can see the indexes are very, very low. Our indexes are very high, especially like Asian region. Also, like certain countries are very, very good, right? But India, Pakistan, China, Bangladesh, like they are like really heavy users on that. But I can tell you an example. So one European guy, like a professor, came to our university and he had some problem with his computer. So then he came to us, like asking, like, get some help to do that. So then we had to put some software and just to analyze that. Actually, we didn't have that license for that software, because that's a bit of expensive software to analyze and get a report. But then, so before that, also basically he asked, like, okay, so do we have this kind of software? Because he knew like what to do that. So we said that, okay, we do have, but only thing is they are not licensed software. But then he didn't even allow us to put that software. He said, no, so you should, it's okay. Like I can, he didn't want to fix that problem, because that's why, like, that mindset is quite different, right? Especially European people, as well as probably US as well, because they don't see that, because keeping a pirated thing, it's just, they don't like, right? So in that case, like, we want to analyze his computer only, but he didn't want to give that computer to do that, right? So that's what, like, it has to be, right? And as I told you, like in that example also, like first, when you are using as well, if you can afford to pay that and get, you should do that, because then at least that software development will be happening, and then another version will be coming, where there's some money going on. But yeah, if you can't having getting it from another person and using it, that is also okay, right? But however, in using pirated software is not recommended. So I also would say that maybe we have to, like, the mindset is not like that, right? We always trying to go in the other way, other direction. But however, that's all right. I think individually, I think I haven't heard any raids are happening like in your personal computers as such. But however, organizations, they do, like, they do come. And but then, however, it's like when you are at your company, even if you are using your private computer, but you can't say this is my private computer, because when you are at the organization, that is part of that So then you should not take your personal computer which has a lot of pirated software. So you have to keep it at home, right? So that part, I would say, like you're not in a big threat or like issue, but however, companies as such, I think you all have to be very, very careful, and because that is not allowed.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions, or like you can ask from software, because we have discussed like all kind of different software as well, and I will try to give a little bit introduction to FOSS, so that because you all can see now. For example, since we have a few minutes, I will just take this. Now, let's say you are not an IT guy, right? You are the decision maker. So I'm just putting you all in the top decision making. So you can say like, okay, your CEO or like your board has said, okay, why not you do like a lot of now people are using AI and business analytics, right? BS. And why can't we do that? Like, and then your IT guys, right, are coming with us, say, so shall we go with like, because now to do that, there are this IBM Power BI, whatever, like you just pay like 1.5 million, right? Shall we buy that software and do this, right? But then what you can see, there are lots of AI and Power BI sort of like tools are available, FOSS, right? Lots of FOSS tools are there. So you can say, okay, first try with our data, because first they have to apply our data, right? And see whether you can get some reasonable predictions, right? Good outcomes. And then with that, maybe we can look further, rather, because you also don't know whether after buying 1.5 million rupees, but just nothing, like whatever you are doing day to day, like still it's coming like nothing new, right? Just a waste of money, like maybe, yeah, straight to that, everyone is doing that. So in that kind of a scenario, maybe your decision should be like, okay, just try, first come up with, because you might not know, but you can push them. You know, there are FOSS tools, like, so the IT guys has to find that and get a report, and then you can say, okay, now let's try some of these, like come a case study, right? And then what sort of FOSS tools are there to do AI-based best business analytics. And then you can say, okay, with that, with your report, okay, let's take the first two products and try with our data and see whether we can get something outcome, right? So the outcome is good. They said, okay, so that we can get it, but we can get more, because this doesn't have these functionalities, but this particular paid one has more of them, right? Okay, then you might do, because you can see that there's some things are happening, so you can see that that money can be recovered, right? So that kind of decision you should be able to take, right? So from the board or the CEO, like pushing you to make certain things, but of course, some people are always, because our people are also like, when something tells that, okay, they just go to the maximum, like, so let's buy a computer, like they try to get the latest Intel processor to be inside that, whatever the maximum number of RAM to be put into the computer. That's why like our people are also used to ask, right? But then if you are the decision maker, you should be able to make it a good judgment, because you have to make sure that that investment has your returns has to be looked into, right? So especially this hardware and software, you have to be careful, because these are not very cheap. Hey, I didn't put those kind of tools as well, like what for business analytics you can use open source software. There are, right? So, but however, as long as you all know what is open source and what we can take the advantage from open source, and that will be good, so that you can push, because the rest of the things the IT department has to do that. Right? Any other questions?
So there are some website which sells license keys of the Office and Adobe Photoshop to like very cheaper price. Is it legal?
Yes.
So
Yeah, it is. Yes, legal, illegal. It's a bit hard to say as well. But that is happens like this because there are people who can go and get bulk. Like for example, let's say I know like Adobe is giving like certain time periods that they are giving kind of Adobe licenses. Like you have to buy 100,000, right? Then it's pretty cheap that because they want like get more things. So then those people get bulk and then they can sell that. So keeping a small profit margin, right? And by the way, today, you know, like because those organizations don't have to have office. They don't have to have a staff, just one-man person, like they just purchased. And then just over the internet transactions can be done. So because of that, the overhead is less. Yes, most are quite all right, but some likewise, what they do is they take the pirated software and they push it to you, and without you knowing, you paid and you are using a pirated copy. So that is where like that's what I can't say this is good, this is bad, right? So there are good organizations, right, where they will get the proper license and sell you with a lesser profit margin because they have purchased bulk. There are some people just escaping that because for you, probably when you install, you think it's a software because later only, like when someone do audit only, you realize that, okay, this is a pirated software. So individually you are using that, again, your peace of mind, and because you want to make it sure that I'm not using pirated software, that will be good. But for a company, if you are like, again, higher management, as you are trying to make such a decision, you have to be a bit careful because you might get trapped to get, ultimately you pay and get pirated software. Right? So that you have to be very careful. But there are reputed companies, reputed organizations, right? Of course, they are, when you look at it, when you get and go for a service level agreement, sort of like that, and then you know that, okay, this company can provide us the software. So then that will be all right. But just, yeah, I also have seen a lot of Facebook and things that sometimes like you can't imagine like buying that particular software for that price, right? So can be a pirated thing as well. That's a good question. Anything else?
So when we are using these pirate softwares, other than the cybersecurity concerns like malware attacks and all, are there any other concerns which we should worry about? About the performance of the computer and
they're now, one is like malware or Trojan horse, like it will activate on a certain day or whatever. So all security kind of thing, right? So that something will happen, right? The other one is like it will maybe a performance of the computer, like putting a lot of overhead to the computer and then not working well. That's another one. The other one is like don't know whether they are stealing with that some details from our computers. So let's say this is like organization, you are like one of the reputed government agency or law and enforcement, right? So then through that software, they might be collecting some information. They want to get something internally, right? So those kind of things can happen, right? So you have to be very careful. So I would say like, if your business, like not like sometimes this is more important than business, like towards government and like those kind of law and enforcement, right? They have to be very extra cautious because when they use software, so they have to make sure that their data will be not leaked or someone is getting the data. But when you're doing business, yes, there is a concern because maybe your counterparts will be trying to get some data from you and internal details, right? So that is one thing, right? But other than that, more risk towards sometimes government organizations as well. So because of that, I would say, both have a risk, right? From security side, there will be risk. But that's why like when then someone can ask like then as an individual, Is that only the security threat is there for us, right? Yeah, can be, but however, if your personal details, like, so what if like your credit card details and the passwords that you have saved in a file will be exposed, right? So then through that, like maybe your Gmail, your Facebook and all the accounts, and then someone is just not making any money, like they have used your Facebook account and then just put some nasty post, right? And then that will be have a bad image or like your company, right? So you can see like there are so many things can happen, right? Just always think like they will hack and delete our files or just lock our files or like ask some money from us. No, some other things also can happen. The other bad thing is like sometimes with that they will plant another program of theirs, right? And then they will give you a good software. Let's say you got a good software for a cheaper price, right? And then with that another software comes because that is what they are going to hack another computer in US, and but your computer will be used for that. You don't know about that, right? Because they do have remote control. So for denial of service or distributed denial of service attacks. So that those things can happen. So there are so many things can happen when you use software as well. Like, so those whole thing can be cleared really if you are using open source software, because then you have an IT branch that's what, like, so they can clearly check the code and then they can compile it and get the object code. And when you are using, you're 100% sure what you are using. And that's where, like, I think I told the other group. So when you're downloading as well, let's say this is also another thing, like same question related to that. Let's say Adobe you want to download, and because you want now open PDF, you know, Adobe is a very good, right? Everyone uses, and there's a good respect for that because that's a good company and they will not do bad things, right? They are giving that one is free, freeware, but there are so many other, they are making money. So that's they can give. But now just without you knowing much about Adobe website, you type Adobe Acrobat Reader download, right? So that you went to a site, just you don't read much, it says like download Adobe, just you download it. But then Adobe will be coming, that will be another software, like they have compiled with something on top of that, right? So it's where, like, so you should never download these object codes without knowing where it is coming from, right? So going to the Adobe website, adobe.com, and then going to the download page and getting the Acrobat Reader, that has much more safer than just say download and without knowing anywhere, just to download. Or someone gives a link, you can download it from here, but without really analyzing, just don't download straight away. Because those can be some bogus sites as well. So they might be not only giving the what you want, but also some extra things will be coming. Okay, so then if there's no more questions, like I will end for today, and then I will do next week. With next week, I will complete my discussion. So next week we are going to talk about totally on security, and then so there are quite interesting things can be discussed, and then thereafter Dr. Nuradi will take over, and then she will be doing the MIS part. Okay, then see you all next week.